Hey YouTube, what is going on? So, as you guys know, or may not know, you probably do know because half of my live streams now are about the amount of uh, pest snails that I get from pet stores now to pretty much, feed my um, what is it called? My micro predator, which is a baddest. Um, and they're really cool fish. And honestly, I, never thought like this thing would end up living. Always thought it would kind of like survive and kind of die. I've had a lot of fish in the past that killed themselves. Technically, I've had a uh, what's it called? African butterfly fish jump out of the tank. I've had a African lungfish hit its head on the top of the tank. I've had fish necessarily try to kill themselves. I've had fish that are constantly freaking out. I've had big lungfish get eaten by frogs. So, I had my share of, snails dying and animals dying and stuff like that. And not that I don't like, per se, to kill animals. I try not to. But when, it's a fish that only preys on live animals, you kind of have to get snails to do that, and the only way to do that is to get pest snails, because honestly the amount of snails that this thing kills, I don't know what he eats. I don't know what size he likes. I don't know what or she likes per se, because she's a female. Males have that pretty red color, and she's like full brown. So I don't technically know what per se this what size this bass technically likes. I do call it a micro predator as well. That's a little easier to distinguish from a bass, which is like, it's kind of essentially like a fish that is not kind of well known. So it's like a tiny like bluegill kind of like fish per se. And I just wanted to like give a thing, like kind of like a video on like pest snails and why generally I think they're really cool to have as well. And why I think you should generally buy them, because honestly, I think some pet stores they let you buy a snail that may or may not survive. They per se have you pay 79 cents for a minnow that is probably gonna die within the next 2 days. Just the way they ship them, so it's they let you spend 1 cent for a goldfish, a few goldfish or something like that. So when it comes to baby snails, like the bladder snails, the snails you see right now, which are the mystery snails, the both color mystery snails, the golden Inca snail and the brown mystery snail, as well as the pond snail, the rabbit snail, and the assassin snail, as well as the ram's horn snail, Nereid snail, and the Colombian ram's horn snail. Ram's horn apple snail, which is so weird. I never heard of that before. When it comes to these snails, like, I get it as a sale price of things. So essentially, you're buying a snail, right? But some pet stores, when they get over, like, these snails have generally two babies per um, batch of snails. So if you have, like, let's say, two snails, those two snails can have one or two babies. So essentially, the amount of babies that I have in here, basically, every snail had one baby that was in the tank originally, and they did not um, buy those baby snails. So snails basically had babies in the tank, and then those babies are now in the aquarium. So, depending on the snail, like, hang on a second. Depending on the way they sell the snail, realistically, you would be better at buying a snail that is full grown for $3, rather than buying a snail that's smaller. So when you go into a pet store, like what I usually do, which is, occasionally, like, I don't per se, hey, can you fit in this mystery snail with this, with these snails, and a lot of times when you are caring for multiple fish, multiple tanks, the size of the tank, how hard it is to care for the animals. Now, when you have an overrun of snail that you can't get rid of, like, instead of, like, pushing Petco has never pushed any animal, besides a red claw crab, I think, but I think that was another pet store, actually, but, depending, like, Petco never pushes animals, as far as I know, as far as my Petcos go, and any other pet store goes that is a chain pet store. So, like, essentially, if you're the only fish guy that is taking care of multiple tanks, whether it's sold or fresh, I don't know how they train their fish employees, but if you're caring for multiple tanks and you know how to care for aquariums, I care for aquariums, and honestly, I do that by adding multiple snails in my tank. So I literally, no joke, did a word change today, and my thing was, okay, so I could either add more fish than snails, so like add a loach, add a red-tailed shark, add a rainbow shark, not necessarily do that, but just listing animals that I can add pleco, I can add whatever, right? So I'm like, okay, I could probably add a giant pleco that should eat, anything in my tank, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe not, because pleco gets like 6 inches, and I want to add, snails to my tank, and I pre-plan my tank environment to suit what, if I go on vacation and a fish dies, most of my family generally does not care for fish, besides my aunt, who used to care for my tank, but I had a ram die when she was, when we were away. I had no luck on rams, Bolivian rams, as well as any ram per se. I cannot keep one in my tank because it's not fully clean, it's not like pristine, so they don't generally survive. But sorry it's late, but with that said, like, you if you own a tank and you want to, like, I literally said, like, okay, I'm going to try this and it's going to work. Um, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get more snails, more bottom dwelling fish than top dwelling fish. So I have right now, currently in my aquarium, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, probably 10 fish roughly in my aquarium. So that is 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 12 fish. Now they're not all full grown, so realistically 2, 4, 6. Well, you can't necessarily do it from the gallon per, whatever thing, because obviously the fish aren't full grown. It depends on how fast they grow. It depends on if they die. It depends on if you rehome them. So generally, you don't want to add fish that are going to get three. Like, you don't want to add too many fish, but you want to add enough fish so, like, you can, like, I per se add more. Like, with me, I love breeding mollies, so I'll add more plants than I would fish, or like I'll have my stock of fish per se, and then I will add in more plants per every fish that I add. So I'm not overstocking my tank. I'm just replacing fish that die and then adding plants in for the additional fish that I add that I don't mean to add. So like if I was to breed a green self and molly, which I per se, I know that's like additional intake to oxygen. So I'll add another plant in there that releases oxygen so that fish has enough oxygen to breed. Now if I get one per se, then I won't necessarily do that, but if I get two instead, like if I plan to get one and then I get two, then I'll get another plant just so there's more oxygen in there for that extra fish. But like when it comes to, hang on a second guys, when it comes to that's half an hour. No, that's 15 minutes. Yeah. So it's half an hour, so you gotta do this one more time for an hour, and then I'm gonna put the snails in. As I was saying, like before I add water in the bag, with the rabbit snails, I per se would essentially, now people are okay, they go by so they go by fish per gallon, right? So if you have a molly and you have a 5-gallon tank, you can only get one molly per 5 gallons. Now if that molly is 1 inch long or 2 inches long, 3 inches long, then you could add another fish, and if you add another fish, well, you just overstock your tank. But those fish are tiny, so technically you didn't overstock your tank yet. But those fish will get bigger, and that's where the 1 inch per gallon comes in, because, and that does work. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but if you, like, you can plan for, like, mollies, obviously. Nobody knows what age they are. Nobody knows the genetics. Nobody knows whatever. So if you plan per, like, if you get a pretty molly, like, let's say a green Southern molly or a Dalmatian molly, or a sailfin molly and you want to breed them, obviously the idea would be to add more females so they would breed. Now, if you have a 30-gallon tank or a 20-gallon tank, adding 612, that's most of your fish genetics. So you would add in more plants. You would add in, obviously, need a 30-gallon because they go crazy, as you could tell by my last live stream. With the other molly, so basically, I mean, it's not. What I'm basically trying to say is, you essentially can do that. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but I'm also saying, like, it's okay to buy a lot more fish. Just have a plan to take care of that. If you do plan to buy more fish in the long run. So if you're buying, like, let's say a 10-gallon tank. Or a 30-gallon tank. Now, you don't want, like, 5 different females because every molly has a different aggression level and they will create a pecking order. But let's say you start with, let's say, a 15-gallon. And you get 6, 12, 18, maybe, like 3 mollies, 1 male, 2 females. That's 18 gallons per fish, plus those mollies are genetically homebred or tank raised. They may be like 7 inches to 8 inches long, so that's another like 20 inches in your aquarium. So that's 6, 12, 20 gallons. So you need essentially 20 gallons to own those fish. And you couldn't add anything in, but if the fish are smaller, so pretty much, like, you would have to decide if you want to deal with the tank right now, or the tank, like, the tank conditions currently, or the tank conditions in the next couple of months. Generally, most pet stores, they have younger mollies, but some pet stores, like some privately owned pet stores, have older mollies. So that's where this gallon per 1 inch per gallon would probably come in. But I mean, you can get away with it in any sense. Like in any way you would be able to get away with it because of the fact that the mollies would be, like, if they're younger, you'd be able to get away with it more than them being older and full grown and need more oxygen, essentially. That's, I think, when the fish are full grown, that's where the 1 inch per gallon really comes in, versus when the fish aren't full grown, that's when you're able to have more of an option. Honestly, when it comes to owning mollies and platies and guppies, not so much tetras because, while some tetras can be tiny, they are mostly more full grown in pet stores from what I've seen. So, pretty much, besides the fact they're pretty tiny, but if you do end up getting one big tetra, that would be like 3 inches per gallon, so 3, 6, 9, 12. You can get a pack of them in one tank, essentially, but the main thing would be like this, so the only thing like you would have to worry about as they were to, like, do you want to deal with it now or do you want to deal with it later? That's what you would have to worry about. Like, so if you get adult mollies, yes, they'll breed, yes, they will, survive, and they may be more aggressive and produce more babies for you, but you're also going to deal with the 1 inch per gallon more than getting a baby molly and watching it grow up. there's a higher variety of smaller mollies when it comes to that, but versus the bigger mollies, which obviously can put less in the tank with the bigger mollies, so you would have more of a variety with the smaller ones. But when it comes to 1 inch per gallon, you essentially go with the that would pertain more to the older fish than the younger fish. When it comes to owning these snails, what I've done and how this relates to that is you would need to, like, if I go on vacation, I don't want to worry about, my fish dying or anything. Like, obviously, if a fish dies, the pH goes up, right? So if you have a older fish, like an older molly that's 6 inches long, that's 5 years old, and you are going on vacation and that fish ends up dying, what is going to take care of that fish in your tank so the pH doesn't go up? And a lot of the times, like, I've only thrown out very small fish. Like, when I do water changes of the fish floats, I will throw it out. If it's on the bottom, I generally don't. And the reason for that is I have, honestly, probably 30 to 40 snails in my aquarium that if I do overfeed, these snails take care of it. If I do underfeed, the snails take care of it. If I do have a fish die, the snails take care of it. So, while there is a layer of poop on the bottom of your aquarium, and that will build up as well, you can also get away with doing water changes without cleaning the gravel. At least I can, for about maybe half the year, give or take, if the fish that you are buying are used to that water quality. And I do have a higher pH as well, so give or take, if the fish are used to that water quality versus if they're not. Let me go re-add water into this bag so these snails don't run out of oxygen, and then I'll be right back. Where is my thing here? Just give me 2 seconds, guys. I normally don't do videos instantly, but I just wanted to have something posted because, if you guys can't hear me, obviously I'm not saying anything important, so that pertains to the video as well. Alright, so we're going to do one less largest acclimation for these guys, and then we're going to see what colors we got, because I have no idea what strains of snails we got. Okay, and that should be like close to the top, so. Oh, you are stuck, my friend, I'm sorry. One of the guppies got stuck in the middle of the net when I was filming it. I did not see that. And honestly, if you care for an animal, and that animal technically gives birth in a pet store, people, from what I know, do not buy smaller baby rabbit snails. Yeah, occasionally you have, that rabbit snail, which is this snail right here, which is tinier, and it would fit in generally a 5-gallon tank, 10-gallon tank. But honestly, that is the only time that the pet store would sell you a snail. But again, like, these snails are, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Petco, obviously, selling a rabbit snail for $3. But, I get it as a sale thing. But it would make it, okay, so the pet store isn't generally going to do this, although it would make sense. Like, use the baby snails as a micro setup. So, obviously, the snails are going to be bigger, but if you use it as a micro setup, so these are microfish, micro snails, it's more work for them. So, they're not generally going to do that. But what also doesn't make sense is selling the same snail for $3. In the long run, that does make sense, but think if people put these snails in with, hey Siri, set an alarm for 15 minutes. Sorry, guys.
15 minutes, starting
now. So, like, think of it this way. If you were to buy a snail, and this snail is like, literally, if I'm putting this snail in with Congo tetras and micro predators, honestly, I probably wouldn't if I wanted to own this thing, but I own rabbit snails, and this thing hasn't killed a rabbit snail yet, so I have faith that this thing isn't going to kill a rabbit snail. But it's harder to pay for something this tiny and expecting it to, like, just for the occasional, sorry about that. I don't know what that's for. What is that for? I'm gonna X out of that. Like, I get the micro setup for those snails, but I don't get the $3 thing for a tiny snail that's an inch long that a tetra could pretty much eat. Like, that's what I don't understand. But again, it's a snail that paid for. Obviously, they didn't pay for a snail, but the snail had babies in their environment, so technically, they would obviously do that, and obviously anybody would if the snail ended up giving birth in their tank or whatever. You would generally do the same thing. But again, it doesn't make sense to have the same snail sold for $3. Again, it doesn't also make sense if the thing is like 6 inches long or full grown and it's still being sent for $3. Obviously, increase the price as the snail gets bigger. So it's basically, yes, they do sell snails for $3, like the rabbit snails, or for $4, depending. I don't know how much I bought the rabbit snail for. I think it was like $3.99 or something like that. Or I saw it for $3.99. But it pretty much, honestly, what they're doing makes sense, because then if they lowered the price for the baby snails, they would have to increase the price for the adult snails by, like, jumbo snails. I know a lot of private owners that do have like $16 per, like, molly for that reason. Like, they are jumbo mollies, so they're generally twice the price. Like, I think mollies are normally $5 in the store versus the tank bred jumbo mollies, which are twice the amount. So they took they had like $10 for the additional price on that. So probably Petco could do that, but there's no sense in doing that because then they would have to pay more attention to their snails and how big they are versus the amount of fish that they care for, plus the birds, plus the mice, rats, etc., snakes. And like, while yes, there is one aquarium person that is, like, these snails are under rocks too, so generally it would depend on, like them going through and like, oh, this is a $4 snail, this is a $5 snail. Like, you don't want to do that to a person that's trying to buy a rabbit snail. You want to have everything the same price so a person can choose their snail, and yeah, go from that. So obviously the, it's generally hard as an aquarist to buy stuff from a store, because of that, but it does make sense in the long run. I just explained that. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. I love owning pond snails. I love caring for them, and I love owning rabbit snails as well. And I'm still glad I got baby snails. Obviously, as they get bigger, I don't know what's gonna die, I don't know what's gonna live. So if I do need to get rid of some snails, I will bring them back to the pet store. If I don't, then that's okay as well. I'm just getting snails to feed my thing, and he's obviously eating some of the snails or some of the dead snails, which I don't see him eating, but every fish eats a dead snail. So I also add a lot more baby snails to have him eat that, but I'm not like purposely killing like rabbit snails or apple snails. I just take them because I think they deserve a better life than living in a pet store, in a tank that always changes fish and always changes animals that may or may not attack them. So that's why I purposely try to get baby snails that are apple snails and or rabbit snails, so I don't have to essentially pay for them in the future, and or if I would need to, like if I have 4 rabbit snails in here that are growing, I don't need any more rabbit snails or anything like that. So that's why I technically do that. I don't purposely like buy snail. Like, my main thing is like I'll buy pest snails for that reason. Like, you do need to feed them, but occasionally, like you see a bunch of babies. Like, sometimes they have baby Malaysian ramshorn snails. They have baby rabbit snails, and they have baby apple snails. So generally, pet stores don't want that many snails in the thing, because obviously some people will, like I said in this video, but some people won't. So generally, most of the people will not buy a snail that's tiny like that. So pet stores are usually okay with it. Some pet stores aren't, but some pet stores are. In terms of what I've seen, it depends on the employee. But I'm okay with anything. My main thing is feed my fish, but if I can get an apple snail out of that as well as a rabbit snail, I would greatly appreciate that too. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy it. Sorry for the long wait. I'm also trying to acclimate my snails as well as while I'm making this video, and I am a little tired. I had a long day, but I want to update this video for you guys. So thank you so much for watching, and this is pretty much as long as my other videos, so it shouldn't be a problem for you guys. Anyways, guys, excuse me, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.